Elena's laughter rings out from the kitchen, mixing with the clinking of glass and the low hum of our dishwasher. I'm in the living room, staring at the unread emails piling up in my inbox, but my focus is on her voice. It's the way she talks these days, this forced brightness, like she's trying to convince someone, maybe me, maybe herself, that everything's fine. It wasn't always like this. A few months ago, we had our usual rhythms, our private jokes. Now, the space between us feels like a glass wall, transparent but cold, something I can't quite touch. She walks in, her smile fading when she sees me at the desk. "You're still working?" "It's late. Just wrapping up a few things," I say. It's almost a reflex now, this vague answer. In truth, I've been staring at the same email for the past 10 minutes, replaying snippets of conversations in my mind, looking for the things left unsaid. I close my laptop and watch her as she pours herself a glass of wine. Red. It's always red now, as if the white one she used to favor belongs to some other version of her, one I barely recognize. "Another late night tomorrow?" I ask, trying to sound casual. She glances at me over her glass, her expression perfectly composed. "Yeah, a new client wants to see a few properties in town. Might take a while." I nod, forcing a smile. It's a line I've heard a lot lately. I want to believe her, but there's something about the way she moves now, like she's slipping through the cracks, keeping parts of herself just out of reach. I decide to push a little, test the waters. "Maybe I could come with you. Help keep things organized." Elena chuckles softly, as if the thought is ridiculous. I appreciate the offer, but it's just a boring work thing. I don't want to drag you into that. There's a finality in her tone that warns me not to press further. But I can't ignore the way her gaze shifts away, the momentary flicker of annoyance. It's gone as quickly as it came, replaced by that smooth, practiced smile. I let it go for now. The next evening, we're at a dinner party hosted by Marcus. He and Elena have been business partners for years, but lately, their partnership feels a little too cozy. I've known Marcus for a long time, since college, back when we'd blow off steam with beers and late-night poker games. But something's changed between us. He's got this way of speaking to me now like he knows something I don't. Elena's on the other side of the room, talking with Julia, a friend of ours. I'm stuck in the kitchen with Marcus, who's pouring himself another scotch. He catches me glancing toward Elena, and a small, knowing smile tugs at his lips. "She's a charmer, isn't she?" he says, offering me a glass. I take it, but the casual tone of his words makes my skin prickle. "Yeah, she's always been good with people," I reply, keeping my voice neutral. Marcus raises his glass in a mock toast. "She's been killing it lately, you know. Clients love her. Had a big win recently, closed a huge sale just last week." I nod, but something catches in my chest. Elena never mentioned that sale. Why wouldn't she tell me about a win like that? I push down the unease, forcing a smile. "That's great. We should celebrate." Marcus clinks his glass against mine. "Yeah, we celebrated all right. Took her out to this little spot downtown. You should join us sometime, Dan. We could make a night of it." The words are innocent enough, but there's something in the way he says them, like he's daring me to ask more. My mind snags on the details. Downtown, late nights, celebrations. I swallow the bitter taste rising in my throat and shift the conversation back to safer territory. But the doubt is already there, seeping in like poison. On the drive home, Elena is quiet, staring out the window as the city lights flash by. I try to focus on the road, but my thoughts are tangled, circling back to that conversation with Marcus. There's a tightness in my chest that won't let up, an itch I can't scratch. I turn on the radio, hoping to break the silence, but she reaches over and clicks it off. "Marcus is in a good mood tonight," I say, testing her reaction. She shrugs, barely looking my way. "He's always like that after a few drinks." "That big sale must have been a nice win for you both." There's a beat of silence, and she turns to me, frowning slightly. "What are you talking about?" "You know, the one he mentioned. Downtown. You never told me about it." Her frown deepens, but she keeps her voice steady. "It wasn't a big deal, just a small sale. I didn't think it was worth mentioning." I let out a laugh, trying to keep it light. "Small, huh?" He made it sound like a real celebration. She looks out the window again, her expression tightening. "Marcus likes to exaggerate. You know that." The rest of the drive is filled with that suffocating quiet, the kind where you can feel all the unsaid words pressing down on you. I steal a glance at her, wondering when this distance started. It's like I'm looking at a stranger, someone who borrowed Elena's face but kept the secrets for herself. Later that night, when she's asleep beside me, I find myself staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I remind myself that I'm probably overreacting, letting my insecurities get the best of me. But then I think about the way Marcus spoke, the way Elena sidestepped my questions, and I feel that glass wall again, pressing between us. I reach over to her side of the bed, feeling the empty space where her warmth should be. For a moment, I consider waking her, asking her to tell me the truth, to just say whatever it is she's keeping from me. But I stop myself, knowing I might not be ready for the answer. Instead, I lie awake in the dark, feeling the distance grow wider with every breath. There's a saying I heard once, that the truth always comes out in the end. But the thing is, the truth never just walks up and knocks on your door. You have to go looking for it. And when you start looking, you better be ready for what you might find. It's been a week since that dinner party at Marcus's, and the doubts Marcus planted in my head have grown like weeds, creeping into every part of my day. Elena still goes out at odd hours, always with some excuse: clients, late showings, last-minute meetings. I try to keep busy, but I can't stop replaying every little thing she says, every detail that doesn't add up. Her phone's always face down now, and there's this new passcode I don't recognize. She's careful, but not careful enough. One night, while she's in the shower, I give in to the impulse that's been eating at me for days. I unlock her phone. She used to trust me with the code, and she hasn't changed it since then. There's a new number near the top of her call history, showing up repeatedly. It's unlisted, no name, just those 10 digits staring back at me. I copy the number into my own phone before slipping hers back onto the counter. When she comes out, towel wrapped around her, I look up from my own phone like I've been there the whole time, scrolling aimlessly. "You want to watch a movie tonight?" I ask, forcing a smile. She pauses, then shrugs. "I'd love to, but I'm exhausted. Maybe another night?" She's already turning away, slipping out of the bathroom with that practiced ease. But I see the way she doesn't quite meet my eyes. And I can't help but wonder, what else is she turning away from? The next day, I'm at work, my computer screen filled with spreadsheets that are supposed to demand my attention. But all I can focus on is that phone number. It gnaws at me, demanding to be dialed. I've told myself that I'll only find out if I take action, so I do. I step out of the office and into the stairwell, where it's quieter. I punch in the number, hear it ring. 3 rings, then a voice I know too well. "Hey, this is Marcus. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." I freeze, my thumb hovering over the disconnect button. I knew it had to be him, but hearing his voice feels like a punch to the gut. I stand there listening to the beep of his voicemail, my mouth dry. Then I hang up, my mind spinning. Why would Elena be calling Marcus so often, outside of work? What are they discussing that she hasn't told me about? I remind myself that they're business partners. There could be a perfectly reasonable explanation, but my gut tells me otherwise, a gnawing instinct that won't let go. I spend the rest of the day in a fog, the numbers on my screen blurring together. When I get home, I find myself watching her even more closely, how she moves through our house like a guest, not a resident. That night, when she steps outside to take another call, I watch her through the window, the soft glow of her phone screen lighting up her face as she paces across the porch. The smile she wears, the way her voice dips low, it's like I'm seeing her for the first time, this version of her that has nothing to do with me. By the time Saturday rolls around, I convince myself I need help. I sit in my car outside a private investigator's office, turning the business card over and over between my fingers. I found him through a quick online search. Vincent Carter, low profile, but with a reputation for being thorough. The office is nothing special, tucked between a vape shop and a pawn shop. But right now, I don't need special. I need answers. Inside, the air smells like stale coffee and old books. Vincent is a man in his 40s with a shaved head and a no-nonsense expression. He listens as I lay it out. No details spared, even though my voice stumbles over the parts where I sound like a paranoid fool. He asks for a few photos of Elena, her routine, any details about Marcus. I hand him everything, feeling a strange mix of guilt and relief as he accepts the folder. He looks at me with eyes that seem too calm for a man in his line of work. I'll keep you updated, but I gotta warn you, sometimes you find out more than you wanted to know. I nod, already aware of the weight of his words. I've crossed the line now, but I'm not sure which side I'm on anymore. 3 days later, Vincent calls me with the first update. He speaks quickly, like he's got a dozen other cases on his mind. Your wife's been meeting with Marcus at a cafe near her office. Twice this week, same time, same place. They sit close, talk for a while. No obvious signs of intimacy, but a lot of time together. Too much for just business, in my experience. I feel a rush of heat, the kind that starts in your chest and spreads out to your fingertips. Did you hear what they were talking about? Nah, nothing that clear. Just the usual smiles and friendly conversation. But they definitely don't look like they're talking shop. I thank him and hang up, staring out the window of my office at the gray skyline. My thoughts tumble over each other. Elena's excuses, Marcus's little digs, that damn cafe they always seem to end up at. The worst part is, I don't even have concrete proof yet. Just suggestions and suspicions that cling to my mind like cobwebs. That night, Elena comes home late again. She's wearing a new blouse, something soft and low-cut, and her hair is still perfect. Client meeting ran over, she says as she slips off her heels, tossing them carelessly by the door. Sorry I didn't call. They were just full of questions. She moves to kiss me on the cheek, but I step back before I can stop myself. The shift in her expression is subtle. Hurt, then confusion, before she hides it with a laugh. What's wrong? I want to ask about Marcus, about the cafe, about all the things that keep piling up between us. But instead, I hear myself saying, nothing. Long day at work. She nods, and just like that, she's back to her usual routine. Dinner, shower, bed. But when she's asleep, I sit in the dark, staring at her phone on the nightstand. I think about how much she's changed and how much I've changed with her. The secrets we're keeping from each other. I grab her phone and try to guess the new passcode. Nothing works, and after the 5th failed attempt, I stop, feeling like a fool. I put it back before she can wake up, but the damage is already done. I can't shake the feeling that she's slipping further and further away from me, disappearing into some life that I'm not a part of. As I lie back down, the question echoes in my head. How much longer can I keep pretending everything's fine? And how much do I even want to know? Vincent's updates come every couple of days, short, efficient, just like him. More meetings, same cafe, he says over the phone. Got some photos for you if you want them. I hesitate before saying yes. He sends the file, and I open it on my laptop later that night when Elena's already asleep. The pictures are all the same. Elena and Marcus seated at a small table in the back corner of that cafe, leaning close over their coffee cups. They're smiling in most of the shots, and the way Marcus watches her. It makes my stomach twist. It's that smile of his, the one I've seen too many times. The one he uses when he thinks he has the upper hand. But there's no kissing, no hand-holding, nothing damning. Just the weight of all those little gestures, the way their heads tilt closer as they speak. I close the laptop, feeling the frustration boiling beneath my skin. It's like I'm holding onto a handful of smoke. Nothing I can truly grasp, but enough to make me choke. Days turn into weeks, and the tension in the house stretches so thin that every word between Elena and me feels like a snap waiting to happen. She started sleeping with her back to me, and I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the air is heavier than it used to be. It's the little things that get to me, like how she doesn't leave her phone out anymore, or how she avoids talking about work around me. One night, after a few too many drinks, I decide I'm done with waiting. I call Vincent again, my voice thick with impatience. I need more than pictures, Vincent. I need something concrete. He pauses on the other end of the line. I hear you, Daniel. But sometimes, there's no smoking gun, you know? Just patterns. If you're looking for a confession, you're gonna have to confront her yourself. But I'm not ready for that. Not yet. Instead, I take another swig from the whiskey bottle I keep hidden in my office drawer and hang up, feeling the warmth burn its way through my chest. Confrontation means risking everything, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to find out just how deep this betrayal goes. A few nights later, I find myself at that same cafe. It's a Thursday, a little after 6 p.m., and the place is crowded with people trying to escape the evening drizzle. I take a corner booth near the back, far enough away from their usual table that they won't spot me if they show up. I tell myself it's not stalking, it's just verifying the facts. I order a coffee, letting the bitterness coat my tongue, and wait. The minutes drag by, each one ticking away louder than the last. I start to think I'm losing my mind, that maybe they won't show, and I'm just sitting here chasing ghosts. But then, through the window, I see them. Elena's umbrella, bright red, and Marcus walking beside her, holding his jacket over his head to keep dry. They don't touch, but they're close enough that it stirs something ugly in me. I shrink back, feeling my pulse hammer against my ribs. They enter the cafe, settling into their usual spot. Elena brushes a wet strand of hair behind her ear, smiling at something Marcus says. It's a different smile than the one she gives me, softer, unguarded. I grip my cup so hard it almost shatters in my hand. For the next 20 minutes, I watch them talk. I can't hear their words, just the low murmur of conversation that blends into the hum of the cafe. But the way they lean toward each other, their shoulders almost touching, is enough. I'm sure now, sure that whatever they're sharing, it's more than just business. I leave before I do something stupid like walk up to them and demand answers. I walk back to my car through the rain, the droplets soaking through my shirt, chilling me to the bone. As I grip the steering wheel, I realize I'm shaking, not from the cold, but from something else, something raw and desperate. I think about driving home, dragging her out of that cafe, and forcing her to tell me the truth. But instead, I drive aimlessly through the city, my thoughts spinning out of control. It's late by the time I park in our driveway, the rain still coming down hard. Her car isn't there. She's still out with him. And I'm left alone in the dark, the engine ticking as it cools. The next morning, I'm at the kitchen table when Elena finally comes home. Her makeup is smudged from the rain, and she looks tired, like she hasn't slept much. She pauses when she sees me, her keys jangling in her hand. "Good morning," she says, her voice too cheerful. "Didn't expect you to be up this early." I take a slow sip of my coffee, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought you said you'd be back earlier last night." Her smile falters just for a moment. "Yes, sorry. Marcus wanted to go over some last-minute changes to a contract. It took longer than expected." I set my mug down, leaning back in my chair. "Funny, it seems like you spend more time with Marcus than you do with me lately." She gives me a strained look, like she's trying to read between my words. "He's my business partner, Dan. You know that. What's with the third degree?" I take a breath, forcing a smile that feels brittle. "It's just, you used to tell me about these things. I don't want to feel like I'm the last to know." She looks away, running a hand through her hair. "I didn't think it was a big deal. I'm just trying to make a living, the same as you." Her words are reasonable, almost rehearsed. But all I can see is the image of them in that cafe. Her smile, the way she looked at him. I swallow back the anger rising in my throat and stand, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Yeah, well, maybe we should both try a little harder to keep each other in the loop." Her eyes flash with something sharp, but she doesn't respond. I grab my jacket and head for the door before the argument can ignite. The door slams behind me, the sound echoing in the empty hallway. I call Julia that afternoon, needing to hear a voice that isn't filled with excuses. We meet at a bar near her office, one of those dimly lit places that make you feel like you're hiding from the world. Julia listens as I vent, her gaze steady and sympathetic. She leans forward, her hand brushing mine across the table. "Maybe you're overthinking this," she says, her tone careful. "I know things are tough between you two, but Marcus, I don't think he's the kind of guy who'd do something like that to a friend." I laugh, but it sounds hollow even to my own ears. "You don't know him like I do, Julia. Trust me, he's capable of more than you'd think." She squeezes my hand, her eyes softening. "Daniel, I'm here for you, whatever you need. Just be careful. Don't do anything you'll regret." Her words hang between us, heavy with implication. I can feel the warmth of her hand lingering long after she lets go. But even as she talks me down from the ledge, I can't stop thinking about how much of this mess I'm responsible for. How I'm stuck, halfway between suspicion and certainty, and how every day I'm slipping closer to losing control. The days after that rainy night blur together, all merging into a stretch of sleeplessness and simmering frustration. Elena and I barely speak, each of us moving through the house like ghosts, trying not to collide. When she isn't working, she's locked away in her office, on calls with clients, or more likely with Marcus. I spend my evenings with a bottle of scotch and my laptop, combing through every detail, every scrap of information Vincent sends over. But all I've got are more shadows, nothing that says outright, "Here's the proof," she's lying. Then one evening, she says the words that push everything past the breaking point. She stands by the front door, her coat already on, her purse slung over her shoulder. "I need a break, Daniel." I think we both do. My chest tightens. "What do you mean, a break?" She sighs, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. I need some space, okay? I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. It'll give us both time to think. Her sister lives in another state, a few hours away. It's the kind of excuse that feels like it's been sitting in her back pocket, waiting for the right moment. I stare at her, searching her expression for a hint of regret, of guilt, but her face is smooth, impassive. Like this decision is a formality, something she's already made peace with. "How long?" My voice is strained, the words catching in my throat. She shrugs, avoiding my eyes. "A week. Maybe more. I don't know, Daniel. I'll call you." She kisses my cheek, the briefest press of lips, and then she's gone, the door clicking shut behind her. I stand in the hallway, feeling like the whole world has just shifted under my feet. My hands clench into fists, the nails digging into my palms as I fight the urge to throw something. Anything just to hear it shatter. I grab my phone, hovering over her contact, thinking about calling her back, begging her to stay. But before I can dial, a message pops up on the screen. It's from Vincent. "Got something for you. Urgent. Meet me tonight." Vincent's office is empty when I arrive, but he buzzes me in after a moment, his face grim in the dim light. He's got a manila folder in front of him, the edges frayed, as if he's been clutching it too tightly. "Thanks for coming in," he says, sliding the folder across the desk. "You need to see this." I open the folder and find a series of photos clearer than the last batch. Marcus and Elena, meeting at a hotel. Not the little cafe where they'd been before, but a mid-range, no-questions-asked kind of place. The kind where nobody would recognize her. In one of the pictures, Marcus's hand is on the small of her back as they head inside, and she's leaning into him, her smile wide, her face unguarded in a way I haven't seen in months. I swallow, my mouth suddenly dry. "When was this taken?" "Yesterday," Vincent replies, leaning back in his chair. I didn't follow them in, but they stayed for a couple of hours. It could mean nothing, but he doesn't finish, and he doesn't have to. My mind fills in the gaps, piecing together every excuse she's made, every late night, every unexplained absence. It's a punch to the gut, harder than anything I'd prepared myself for. I grit my teeth, trying to keep my expression neutral, but Vincent catches it. The flash of pain, the raw edge to my voice. "Look, I know this is rough," he says quietly, "but you wanted the truth. Now you've got it." I nod, stuffing the photos back into the folder with shaking hands. My voice comes out rougher than I intend. "Thanks, Vincent. I appreciate your work." He studies me for a moment, his eyes narrowing. "What are you planning to do, Daniel?" I force a laugh, but it's as empty as I feel. Guess that depends on what she has to say when I show her these. Elena calls the next day, just as she promised, her voice calm and distant, like we're talking about the weather. I can hear the hum of traffic behind her, the background noise of some cafe or rest stop. "I've been thinking a lot, Dan," she says, her tone too smooth, too rehearsed. "Maybe this time apart is what we needed. I think it'll be good for us." I can't help but let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah? Did Marcus think so too?" There's a pause, sharp and electric. I can almost picture her face tightening on the other end of the line. "What the hell are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Elena. The hotel, the little secret meetings. Don't bother lying to me. I've seen the pictures." Silence stretches out between us, a dead weight that makes my pulse throb in my ears. When she finally speaks, her voice is low and cold. You've been spying on me? I don't even try to deny it. I had to, since you weren't exactly forthcoming about your late-night meetings. What did you expect me to do? Her breath hitches, a small, broken sound, and I almost think I hear regret in it. But then she switches to anger, throwing it like a shield between us. You've always been so paranoid, Daniel. You never trusted me. That's the real problem here. This isn't just about Marcus. It's about how you've never let me breathe. I feel my grip on the phone tighten until it hurts. Don't turn this around on me, Elena. I trusted you until you started lying to me. She laughs, the sound sharp enough to cut. Is that what you think this is? Some kind of grand betrayal? Maybe you're right, Daniel. Maybe I'm done pretending that I'm happy with you. I thought if I gave it time, if I tried, I could find that spark again. But I'm tired. I'm done. Her words are like a blade, slicing through any hope I'd held on to. I lean against the wall, closing my eyes, trying to find the right thing to say, the words that will make this all mean something. But there's only emptiness. So what? You and Marcus are going to ride off into the sunset together. I spit out, each word laced with bitterness. There's another pause, and I can almost hear her hesitation. It's not like that, Dan. It was never meant to be like this. But maybe it's better this way. For both of us. The call ends with a click, and I'm left alone in the silence of our empty house. I stare down at the phone in my hand, half expecting her to call back, to say something, anything, that might explain away the cracks that have grown into chasms between us. But the screen stays blank. That night, I find myself sitting on the edge of the bed, the manila folder open in front of me, the photos scattered across the sheets like evidence in a trial. The anger I'd felt earlier has drained away, leaving only a hollow ache. I think about confronting Marcus, throwing the photos in his face, making him feel even a fraction of the humiliation he's put me through. But as I stare at his face in the pictures, all I can think of is the way he used to smile at me back when I thought we were friends. Instead, I pour myself another drink and pick up the phone. I call Julia, needing a voice that isn't twisted with lies. She answers on the second ring, her tone warm and worried when she hears the edge in mine. Daniel, what's going on? I tell her everything about the photos, the phone call, the hotel. My words tumble out in a rush, and by the time I'm finished, there's a long pause on the other end of the line. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft, almost gentle. I'm so sorry, Daniel. You didn't deserve this. You're a good man. You deserve someone who appreciates that. Her words cut through the haze in my head, and I find myself clinging to them. I imagine her hand on mine, the softness in her eyes, and for a moment, I wonder if she might be right. But even as I lean into that comfort, a voice in the back of my mind whispers that this isn't the end. It's only the beginning of a reckoning. After Elena's call, my days bleed into each other, filled with long hours staring at those photos, replaying our last conversation in my head. Her words are like a knife I keep twisting deeper, thinking if I push hard enough, maybe the pain will make sense. But all I find is the same hollow ache. She doesn't come back that week, or the week after, and the silence in the house is suffocating. On a cold Friday night, Julia shows up at my door. She brings a bottle of whiskey, and we sit on the back porch, watching the last traces of sunlight fade. I tell her about the hotel, the pictures, the lies that are now too tangled to unwind. She listens, her hand brushing against mine every so often, like she's reminding me she's there. I know she means well, but there's a hunger in her eyes, a closeness that makes me uneasy. Part of me wants to lean into it, to let her fill the void Elena left behind. But another part knows that it wouldn't be fair to either of us. After a few drinks, Julia turns to me, her voice dropping to a murmur. You deserve better than this, Daniel. You deserve someone who cares about you, who actually wants to be with you. I hear the invitation in her words, the unspoken promise, but I can't bring myself to respond. Instead, I look out at the empty yard, my thoughts drifting to Elena, to Marcus, to all the ways this mess could end. And that's when I decide I need to hear the truth from both of them. Face to face, no more lies or hiding. I need to hear why she chose him, why he betrayed me. It's raining again when I pull up outside Marcus's house. I park a few doors down, hidden in the shadows, the engine ticking as it cools. His house is one of those modern things, sharp lines, big windows, too much glass. I've always thought it looked fragile, like something that would shatter at the first sign of trouble. I watch from the car, waiting for a sign that he's home. His car is in the driveway, but the house is dark. I imagine him inside, going about his night, feeling safe, feeling secure. A rage rises in my chest, hot, uncontrollable. I think about the photos in my glove compartment, the ones Vincent took, and I know I need to confront him. Tonight, before I lose my nerve, I get out of the car and walk up to his front door, the rain soaking through my jacket. My fist connects with the wood, and it takes a few heavy knocks before I hear footsteps inside. When Marcus opens the door, his expression flickers from confusion to annoyance. Daniel. His voice is sharp, edged with impatience. What the hell are you doing here? I don't answer. I just shove the manila folder into his chest, the photos spilling out across his doorstep. He glances down, his face paling as he sees the pictures. Him and Elena slipping into the hotel, his hand on her back. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. Say something. I demand, my voice raw. Tell me why you did it. He bends down, gathering the photos with shaking hands. He looks back up at me, and for a moment, I see the mask crack. There's a flicker of shame, but then it hardens into something colder, a sneer that twists his lips. You think I owe you an explanation, Dan? You think you're some victim in all this? The words hit me like a slap. I step closer, barely aware of the rain dripping from my hair into my eyes. You were supposed to be my friend. He laughs, a short, bitter sound that cuts through the downpour. I was your friend, but you pushed her away. You made her miserable, and she came to me. What was I supposed to do? Tell her to go back to her loving husband? She chose me, Dan. She made her decision. I feel my fists clench at my sides, the heat in my chest boiling over. I can see my reflection in his eyes, angry, broken, desperate, and I realize he's enjoying this. He's been waiting for this moment, for the chance to strip away what little dignity I have left. You think you won, don't you? I ask, my voice dropping to a whisper. You think you can just take everything from me and walk away? He steps back, his hands up like he's expecting me to lash out. I didn't take anything, Dan. She left you because she wanted to. It's not my fault you couldn't keep her. Something in me snaps. Before I can think, I'm lunging forward, shoving him back against the doorframe. He stumbles, his hands grabbing at my arms, trying to push me off. We crash into the hallway, the sound of breaking glass filling the air as a vase topples off a table. Marcus swings at me, his fist connecting with my jaw, but the pain only fuels the fire roaring in my chest. I slam him against the wall, my vision going red, my hands tightening around his collar. For a moment, I think about how easy it would be to keep squeezing, to make him feel every ounce of rage that's been building inside me. But then I hear a voice, sharp and panicked, cutting through the fog. Stop it. Both of you stop. I turn, blinking through the rain and blood in my eyes, and see Elena standing in the doorway. She's soaked to the bone, her hair plastered to her face, her eyes wide with fear. She steps between us, her hands on my chest, trying to push me back. Daniel, stop, she pleads, her voice cracking. Please, just let him go. I look down at Marcus, at the fear in his eyes, and the anger suddenly drains out of me, leaving me hollow. I release him, stepping back, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. He slumps against the wall, clutching his throat, his face pale and twisted with anger. You're both pathetic, he spits, his voice hoarse. You deserve each other. Elena rounds on him, her voice breaking. Shut up, Marcus. Just shut up. But he just laughs, a bitter, mocking sound. You really thought he wouldn't find out, Elena? You really thought you could play us both? Her face crumples, and for a moment, I see something like regret flicker across her features. But when she turns back to me, it's replaced with that same defiance I've come to know too well. Go home, Daniel, she says, her voice barely a whisper. This isn't going to fix anything. I shake my head, the rain blurring my vision. You think I can just walk away from this? After everything you've done? She looks down, her shoulders trembling. You have to. Please, just go. I leave them there. Marcus hunched against the wall. Elena is standing between us, the rain pouring down around us like some kind of twisted baptism. I get in my car, the engine roaring to life, and drive without knowing where I'm going. My hands tremble on the wheel, my thoughts spinning out of control, but all I can hear is Marcus's laughter echoing in my ears. When I finally stop, I'm sitting outside Julia's apartment. I don't remember how I got there, but the lights are on inside, and I can see her silhouette through the curtains. She opens the door before I can even knock, her face crumpling when she sees the state I'm in. "Daniel, what happened?" she asks, her hands cupping my bruised face, her eyes wide with worry. I try to talk to them. I say, my voice hollow. But it's over. It's really over. She pulls me inside, her arms wrapping around me, and I let myself lean into her warmth, feeling like I'm collapsing from the inside out. She whispers that it's going to be okay, that I'll get through this, but her words feel like they're coming from somewhere far away. And as I hold on to her, feeling the weight of the night settle on my shoulders, I realize that I'm standing at a crossroads. I've lost Elena, I've lost my oldest friend, and all that's left is the wreckage of everything I thought I knew. But I also know that there's still one card I can play, one last move to turn the tables. And this time, I'm not going to hold back. Julia's apartment is warm, almost stifling compared to the cold rain outside, but I let it wrap around me. I can hear her moving in the kitchen, pouring a glass of whiskey and setting it on the coffee table in front of me. My hands shake as I pick it up, feeling the burns slide down my throat, hoping it will dull the sharp edges in my mind. But nothing can blunt the memory of Elena's voice, her plea for me to leave, Marcus's smug grin as he taunted me. Julia sits beside me on the couch, her hand resting on my knee, a gentle pressure that seems meant to reassure me. But it just feels like another weight, something else to consider, something else to be suspicious of. I want to trust her, to believe that she's just trying to help, but I've seen too many masks in the past few weeks to take anyone at face value. "I'm sorry, Daniel," she says, her voice soft, her eyes wide with sympathy. "You deserve better than this." I look at her, at the way her fingers curl into my jeans, and I wonder if she's right. If maybe, in some other version of this story, she could be the one I turn to, the one who doesn't lie, who doesn't hide things. But before I can decide what I want, she leans closer, her breath warm against my cheek. "You don't have to be alone in this," she murmurs, her lips brushing mine. "We could." I pull back, my head spinning, and I catch the flicker of surprise and hurt in her eyes. "Julia, this isn't the time. I can't think straight right now." She pulls away, her expression tightening. "Right? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push." But there's something else in her voice, something cold and disappointed. I reach for her hand, trying to explain, but she stands up, crossing her arms over her chest. "Maybe you're not ready to move on, but you need to stop letting her control you, Daniel. She's not coming back, and even if she did, you know she's never going to choose you." Her words hit hard, but I don't respond. I just finish the whiskey and set the glass down, staring at the empty reflections in the dark window. The next morning, I wake up on her couch with a pounding headache and a message from Vincent flashing on my phone. It's a voice memo, short and clipped, but the words make my breath catch in my chest. "I don't know what you're planning, but you need to know that Marcus has been siphoning money from the real estate business. Embezzlement, skimming off the top. He's been using Elena to keep the books clean. She might not even know about it. If you're going to make a move, this is your shot." I listened to the message twice, my mind spinning with the implications. Marcus, the smooth-talking, backstabbing charmer, is playing a bigger game than I realized. And maybe Elena, for all her lies, has been caught in his web as well. A plan starts to form in the back of my mind, a way to turn the tables on Marcus, to use his own games against him. I spend the rest of the morning poring over the photos, the records Vincent sent over, piecing together a case that will put Marcus exactly where he belongs. And this time, I'm not going to leave anything to chance. That night, I call Elena. She picks up on the third ring, and I can hear the hesitation in her voice. "What do you want, Daniel?" "I know about the money, Elena. I know what Marcus has been doing with the business." There's a sharp intake of breath on the other end, but she doesn't interrupt. I press on, my voice steady. Meet me tonight at the house. If you don't, I'm going to the police with what I've found. There's a long silence, then the sound of her exhaling slowly. Fine, but this doesn't change anything between us. Daniel. It doesn't have to. I reply, my tone cold. Just be there. I hang up and take a deep breath, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Whatever happens tonight, at least I'll finally have the truth. Elena arrives at the house just after dark. She's dressed in a trench coat, her hair pulled back tight, her eyes darting around the street like she's afraid someone might be watching. When she steps inside, she pauses in the entryway, as if she's half expecting an ambush. "Where's Marcus?" she asks, her voice tight. "He's not here," I say, gesturing for her to sit. "This is between you and me. I want you to know what he's done before I bring this to the authorities." She crosses her arms, but I see the flash of fear in her eyes, the way she swallows hard. "What are you talking about?" I pull out the folder of documents, bank records, shell company transfers, proof of embezzlement, and spread them out on the table. Her eyes widen as she scans the pages, her hands trembling. This can't be right," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know. Marcus never told me any of this." I watch her carefully, searching for signs of a lie, but all I see is genuine shock. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for her. But then I remember the photos, the betrayal, and the sympathy evaporates. "You're in this up to your neck, Elena," I say, my voice hardening. "He's been using you, and you've been using me. But it ends tonight." She looks up at me, her eyes wide with fear. "Daniel, please. If you go to the police, I'll be ruined. I could lose my license, my career. You don't have to do this." I let out a bitter laugh. "And why shouldn't I? After everything you've done?" Her face crumples, and for a moment, she's the woman I married again, the one I used to love. Because I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wanted to feel something again. I never wanted it to end like this." She reaches out, her fingers brushing mine, but I pull away. The words twist inside me, too little too late. "You made your choices, Elena. Now you have to live with them." But before I can say anything more, there's a sound behind me. The click of a door, footsteps crossing the hardwood floor. I turn to see Marcus standing in the doorway, his expression dark, a gun glinting in his hand. "You just couldn't leave it alone, could you?" he snarls, his voice low. "I warned you, Daniel. You should have walked away." Elena steps back, her face going pale. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing?" He points the gun at me, his eyes wild with anger. "Shut up, both of you. Daniel, you're going to give me those papers, and you're going to forget all of this, or we're going to have a problem." I can see the desperation in his face, the fear behind his bravado. And suddenly, I realize I have one last chance. I reach into my pocket, slowly, and pull out my phone, turning the screen to show him. The call is still active, connected to Julia, who's been listening to every word. "You think you're going to threaten me in my own house, Marcus?" I ask, my voice steady. "The cops are already on their way. They've heard everything. You're finished." Marcus's eyes dart between me and the phone, his grip tightening on the gun, but I see the panic start to seep in. He takes a step back, then another, his breathing ragged. Elena just stares at him, her hands over her mouth, like she's finally seeing him for what he really is. And then just like that, he bolts out the door and into the night, the gun clattering to the ground as he runs. I hear the distant wail of sirens, growing closer, and I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The police arrive minutes later, taking Marcus into custody down the street. I give them the folder, the records, everything they need to put him away. Elena sits on the porch, shivering in her trench coat, answering their questions in a monotone voice. She glances at me once, but I look away. When they finally leave, I watch her walk to her car, her shoulders slumped. She stops at the door, looking back at me one last time. "Daniel, thank you," she says, her voice barely audible over the rain. "For everything. I'm sorry." I don't answer. I just watch her drive away, her taillights fading into the darkness. And for the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe again. I find myself back at Julia's a few hours later, telling her everything that happened. She wraps me in her arms, whispering that I did the right thing, that I'll be okay. But as I lie there, listening to her breathing, I can't help but feel that something inside me has been irrevocably broken. I've won, if you can call it that, but I've lost something too, something I'm not sure I'll ever get back. The next morning, I delete Elena's number from my phone. I pack a bag and drive until the city disappears behind me, the road stretching out into the unknown. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I can't stay here with all these memories, these ghosts. And as I drive, I think about how the truth finally came out, but at a cost I'm still paying. Maybe that's all I'll ever have, the fragments of the life I thought I wanted scattered across the road behind me.